The Powers Project.
Reginald, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Kurt? Good to see you.
Thank you. It's good to see you. It's good to have you on the show. You look much younger than I had no idea that you're the age you are. Not that you're old, but I was just like, I was like, I need.
No, look, it's good, clean living, man. That's what it's all about. Good, clean living.
So obviously you're doing something right.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. So you, sir, are college professor. You have a business called Thriving Life Coaching, and you're also a
Yes.
best-selling author of the book called Passing the Baton. So we have a lot to
Yep.
cover here. And so I think let's start with your book, Passing the Baton, a guide,
Okay.
memoir of college success. Let's start with that and what prompted you to write that and go from there.
Okay. So I kind of had this, I guess, book or idea in my head for quite a while, and thought about doing something with, but wasn't quite sure what that form would take. At first, I thought it was initially going to be like a workbook, something that people could do, and I'm even considering doing that now. But all things considered, the reason why I wrote the book was that I wanted to kind of capture students, high school students, middle school students, even college students, kind of where they were, but talk about it from my point of view, or at least my perspective. So I'm a first generation college student. My parents didn't go to school. My dad was in the Air Force, but then that became kind of his school in one respect or another. But formal college came later in life in that regard. So I wanted to capture that because I feel like there's a lot of first generation students out there that don't really have a sense and wherewithal with kind of what to do. But I didn't want to just leave it there. I wanted to also talk about it from the standpoint of the students that I've been working with. I've been in higher ed all my life, Kurt. And so over the past 25, 30 years, I've worked with thousands of students at lots of different colleges and universities. I can name them, but it wouldn't really matter in one respect or another. But if you want to know that, I'm more than happy to tell you. But at least go ahead.
What I would like to ask you is this, because you said you're first generational of going to school because your parents didn't go to school. See, I was
right.
as well. So I want to ask you this: how did you? Because I didn't know how to figure this out when I was filling out things about grants and things of that nature. I didn't fill them out properly because I had no one to guide me when it was asking for my parents' income. I put it in, even though I didn't live with my parents, and didn't realize, I didn't have to put their income in. And so I didn't get the grant because it looked like I had too much money because
Right.
I didn't know any better. And then my first semester, I took 18 hours because no one told me 18 hours was a lot. And so
Kurt, you could have used some coaching, man. You could have used a little TLC in your life.
there was no Reginald back in those days. So
that's right.
So how did you maneuver through? Like, was it through trial and error, like with me, or did you you were just smarter than me and figured out, hey, don't take 18 hours?
I think what happened was that my first semester, I remember very vividly, I took 14 hours. That was 4 classes. I think what I did was I took just over the minimum, which is 12. So it wasn't too much that I couldn't digest, but it was enough to say that I was kind of full-fledged, student. So that was basically what I did, or how I went about it. But back to the book itself. And so basically what I decided to do was to try and write the book from 3 different perspectives. One is a first generation student, and kind of learning that trial and error, much like you talked about, and kind of figuring that out. The second was as a practitioner, because I, by default and through the nature of the work that I did in higher ed, taught students and was teaching students how to basically transition successfully from high school to college so that they could be successful in their college career. And then from the third way is that as a college professor, as you mentioned, I teach at local community college, Northern Virginia Community College in Virginia, and I teach a college student success class. So I wanted to make sure that it had some kind of teaching components to it, some real life experience, but my own experience kind of intertwined in the narrative of the book that I wrote. And if you'll give me just a moment, I just want to, because my background won't allow the book to be seen, but that's what the book looks like when you get it.
Very good.
Okay. Um, so that's kind of, you know, what happened, or kind of how it happened. And you know, it's been when I initially published it in June of 2020, it was a pretty big success for myself, and that was something that I'd never done before. I'd never written a book, never thought about doing anything like that. But via Amazon, it was during its first release, was a top seller for them in adult and continuing education, that category, as well as study skills. So I was pretty pleased and pretty happy with that as a first run through. I was shocked, but I was happy all the same.
Most definitely. You know, I think that's probably for a first time author, especially one that's independent, that, you know, to be able to accomplish something like that is quite, you know, quite a feat. So I'd be very proud of that as well. So
thank you.
So so in the book, you talk about going through this as a student yourself, and from a first person perspective, where you're going, look, this is what I learned. And so, you know, like I said, had I had your book, I would have learned a lot from it. I'd save myself a lot of anguish
Right.
and so in that respect alone, I mean, it's so valuable to people out there who are first generational, whose parents haven't been to college, because my parents had no idea how to, you know, help me out, because it's not a process they ever went through. So they
Exactly.
do, you know, so you're kind of left on your own. And so if you don't have, you know, something at your fingertips, like a book like yours to help you out, you know, I wasn't one of those students. And I think this is part of the challenge, is that I wasn't one of those students who was close to the guidance counselor. In fact, I never used my guidance counselor. I don't know that I ever saw my guidance counselor or knew who it was, you know, because
right.
Because I think many students fall in that, you know, if you're not the straight A student, you know, they don't tend to pay attention to you as much, and they don't expect a lot from you. So they go, oh, you're a C student, you know, he'll get a job working for, you know, construction or something. So they don't,
Right.
they really don't see you going off to college even. So they don't waste a lot of time on you. So for those students who like I was, and it wasn't that I wasn't smart, it's that I didn't apply myself, you know. It's and so one of the things that I want to talk to you about was the fact that in high school, in college, or in life in general, you know, in fact, we hear about this in life, but we don't really think about this when we talk about school, like high school or college. But, you know, who you hang around has a great deal of influence on what kind of person you're going to become. And so I never thought about the people I hung around in high school, you know, and if I had.
No, I didn't either.
Right. And I don't think we do. So, you know, if you would speak on that.
Sure. So it's funny because it feels like you're almost clairvoyant, because that's one of the chapters, or part of a chapter, part of a section of a chapter in the book that talks about you know, who's holding your ladder. And so, you know, like I know, being up on a ladder, you know, actually today in DC, it's a little windy, so this is even more kind of apropos. But, you know, if you're up on a ladder and the foundation isn't quite steady, or you're, you know, a little beyond your reach in some respects, or, you know, the conditions themselves aren't great. You know, it's wet, it's rainy, it's, you know, something, you know, as you climb up each rung of a ladder to get to the, you know, if you're painting or, you know, cleaning out leaves out of the gutter or anything else, lots of things can happen. Lots of intangibles can happen. And so I liken that to ladder holes in the context of the book, because I'm basically saying that who are the people around you that are spotting you? Who are the people around you that are helping you in any shape, form, or fashion that you need? And clearly those people, you know, should be the person who's holding your ladder to begin with, but then, you know, they get pulled away and, you know, you're there by yourself, you know, up on a ladder, or, you know, your kind of ladder of life in some respects, you know, doing your own thing, you know, who's there to support you in all the ways that they need to. And so, you know, if you're really doing your job right as a person being, you know, climbing up the ladder, you should be looking up, or looking, you know, kind of out, as it were, and not worry about what's down below you, because you should know that the support and all the mechanisms and people or resources are there and available to you. It's just a matter of being able to tap into them when you need to. Because I think there's no worse feeling in the world than feeling like you're about to fall or teetering in one respect or another. You look down and there's nobody spotting you. You know, that's probably the worst feeling in the world. So I tell students all the time, make sure you're aware who's, have some self-awareness about yourself. What is it that you want to do? Who is it that you want to be? And what do you got to do to get there? And are the people that are in your life, pouring into you, in one way or another, or are they strippers? And by strippers, meaning taking something away from you more often than they're putting something into you. Now that should be mutually, there should be mutual reciprocity in that process happening. You should be pouring into other people's lives in the same way that they're pouring into yours. But if you're pouring more in and not getting as much back, you may want to evaluate that connection, that relationship in one respect or another. And I know we're talking peer to peer in some respects, but heck, that goes for adults. That's, but that's life in general. So I tell students to be just very mindful of what that looks like and feels like. And, if you're pouring more into it than you're getting, you may want to take a step back and see just what's going on and what's happening. And then, obviously make the adjustments you need to, but clearly not use it as a crutch or as an excuse as to why you didn't get there. Just make the adjustment.
Yes, exactly. And while I was speaking about peer to peer, you make a great point, which is, I think, when I was young, I guess it just didn't occur to me to reach out and ask for help, find someone who would know how to do this to help me. Like, I just thought, oh, this is something I have to do on my own. So, that's exactly what I did. I did it on my own. And because of that, I cost myself a lot of money and a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of heartache, not only did I take 18 hours, I was also, on the wrestling team, and it wasn't like high school. I mean, in high school, you practice 2 to 3 hours. In college, your practice is 6 hours. I never had trouble making weight because I was too tired to eat when I got home. It was like, oh, this is easy. but doing my homework on the other end of it was difficult because I was so tired. I just wanted to go to sleep when I got home. So
exactly.
But if I had someone like you, or even if I had reached out to a guidance counselor or somebody who'd been through the process and say, hey, what steps do I take, rather than trying to do it on my own, it would have helped out a great deal. And I think for younger people, they need to realize, look, don't, because as an adult, I'm telling you, I don't hesitate to ask for help when I don't know something,
because that's just part of the process. It's supposed to be part of the process.
Right.
There's a saying, I think Confucius said it, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically it says that you're a fool for a minute if you don't ask a question and, look for and work for the answer, but you're a fool for a lifetime if you never ask the question. And so, in my book, for what it's worth, asking for help is not a sign of weakness; it's really a sign of strength.
Exactly.
But it's been couched, I think, in our minds as that. I know that we're two men talking. I know that there have been times when I want to ask for directions. Now we got all these apps and everything out there now, but long before that, if you didn't know where you were going, you stopped at a gas station, you stopped at a store, you stopped somewhere and someone gave you directions and told you got 6 blocks to go, you make a right and a left, and you had to remember what they said and write it down or whatever the case may be. I tell students all the time that you're on your own from the standpoint of being 18 and in effect, an adult, and responsible for kind of what happens from that point on for the rest of your life. But I also say that you're on your own, but you don't have to do it alone. And so I think you're pairing yourself with somebody or a group of people, like-minded or willing to help and assist. 9 times out of 10, that help that you could have sought from somebody, they were probably waiting on you to ask for help, and would have helped you in the context of that. But because you didn't, it's like, okay, I can't force something that someone doesn't want to happen. So, why am I here? I'm going to move on to the next thing. And so that's what happened. So I tell students if they really treat this process right, they shouldn't just see themselves as a student, because I think sometimes when you see yourself as a student, that's kind of it's as much as it is an empowering term, it's a mitigating term, kind of lessens your value in one respect or another. But what would it feel like, or what would it be if you were or became my client? So you're now not just, I'm not just a professor in a class and you're just a student. You're my client. My job is to make you better. My job is to make you more than what you kind of see yourself being in one respect or another. Now, clearly, as a student, you got to bring something to the table as well. You just can't sit back and just kind of take in all that's been given and, not really do anything with it. But at the same time, you can't be in a position where, you just accept things. It's almost like going to, your favorite restaurant and asking for a steak, and they give you a steak medium rare and you want it rare. Are you going to accept it just because they gave it to you and that's what they said here? This is what I want you to have, and so be it. Or are you going to take the next step and be able to advocate for yourself and say, hey, excuse me, I asked for a rare steak and I got a medium well steak. What can you do to make sure that this is right? And 9 times out of 10, they'll come back and say, sorry, we'll fix you another, check it to make sure that it's right, and the whole 9. That product service mentality as a consumer applies to going to school, because literally you're paying anywhere from $25,000 to $70,000 to go to a school. You should get what you need to get out of it, so that when after you spent your $100,000 or your close to $300,000 to go to school and become the person that you wanted to be, you should get everything you can out of the experience, whether it's and most of what's offered there is free. So all you have to do is go and seek it and find it and just take advantage of it. There's free tutoring. There's help with the resume. There's help with mock interviews. There's help with, creating an organization that's not currently at your school as a service, something, or as a group that you're interested in doing. All those kinds of resources are available to you if you take advantage and you lean in and, seek them out. But if you don't, they're none the wiser that you're not having a good experience.
Right.
And you just go from there.
One of the things I liked about when I was looking into your business and Thriving Life Coaching was that you take a unique perspective, if you will, which I find to be funny, because after I thought about it, it's like, everyone should take this perspective, but they don't. You actually look at it as an investment in getting a return on your investment. And so, you make a great point. If you're spending, let's say, $50,000 or $100,000 on your college career, are you going to get a return of investment back on that money? Because otherwise I go, well, that wasn't a great investment if you never used that degree.
Exactly.
Or anything. So that, I like that you take that perspective, and I'm shocked that most people don't.
If you burn the bridge between your education and your career, then it's a cost. But if you have something to show for it on the other side of it, whether it's a great first semester or your last semester in school, it's an investment, because you're going to make that back in probably, 3 to 5 years, maybe less, maybe more, but it doesn't matter. The fact is that your earning power as a holding a degree is going to be better. Now, it's not to say that if you don't have a degree that you won't, amount to anything. That's not what I'm saying at all. It may mean that you have to hustle a little bit more. You have to go about your hustle in a different perspective. But for most college degree earning candidates, over a lifetime, they earn more money and they have more access to more resources, and they have more ability to kind of take the dovetail and do the thing that they really want to do, whether that be in going back to school and getting a master's or getting a certification of one sort or another, a licensure. But you really need that foundation to work with, and everything from an associate's degree to a doctorate degree. The point is that you're going back to be able to enrich yourself with more information. And that information will only be information until you apply it. When you apply it, it becomes knowledge that you can then share and offer to other people, long and short, in solving lots of problems that plague us day to day. But your input, your insight, your perspective may be the thing that puts things over the top. And your company continues their revenue, your own or somebody else's continues their revenue. You continue to gain skill, and they will pay you for those skills.
So it sounds like to me, which I think is brilliant, that if you look at your degree, it's either going to become an expense or it becomes an asset. So for people who go to school and just get a degree, let's say in, like when I first went, I was going to major in history because I was going to become a second, with secondary education as a minor, because I thought, oh, I'll be a history teacher. Until I realized real quick I didn't have the patience to be a teacher. So I was like, let's not go down that path. So
there are life lessons in everything, right?
Exactly. Well, this was back when students started like acting up more than they ever had, and giving teachers a hard time. And I was like, yeah, I'm afraid I'll end up in jail if I become a teacher.
Yeah.
I
like orange. I like orange too, but I like it on a shirt, not that I have to wear it every day, right?
Exactly. I'm not into jumpsuits, so
no, me neither. I'm right there with you.
So yeah, so I think that when people look at their degree that way, like the way you're talking about, it makes more sense when you're choosing what you want your degree in, rather than just getting a degree for the sake of getting a degree to say, oh, well, I have a degree. Well, it doesn't, and I'm sure more than I do, but I know a ton of people who have a degree in something they have never used it in and ended up in entirely somewhere else. One, because I don't think they knew what they wanted. And we're going to talk about that, because you talk about, having a passion and going towards that passion. One, I think they don't know what their passion is. Or two, they didn't realize it was saturated, and that there just weren't as many jobs as there were degree holders, and so there wasn't availability that they believed there would be. So
right.
So how do you guide students to figure out what path they should go down, so they don't end up with one of these philosophy degrees and not realize there isn't a position called philosopher?
Exactly. So I do tell people, and I always say, your work should be something that a career is something that you get paid to do, but your calling something that you know to do for yourself. What does that calling look like? And for some, it may mean that they like helping people, or that they like solving problems, or they're great at math, or they're great at computers, or they're great at whatever, fill in the blank. Find out or figure out, and just do a little research. I mean, we Google and YouTube, kind of anything and everything, and I think careers can be very much the same way. So that's one kind of channel of being able to do it. But, have a sense of what that looks like or feels like for you. And, what are the majors or the types of things that you can do that kind of go along with that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that even if you know someone who does the kind of work that you're interested in, that's an instantaneous, mentoring connection relationship that you can form. And it's really simple. Send them an email. If it's a family member, connect with them over the holidays. We've got all these holidays coming up, but connect with them on the side. Take 10 minutes out of their time. Listen, Kurt, I'm really interested in doing X, Y, Z because I see you do it and I think I want to do it. But can you tell me more about what that looks like, what it is, how it feels, what you do to prepare? What would you do different than what, now that versus what you did, in during the time that you were in the process of doing this? Those are the kinds of questions that you can ask. I tell students all the time, again, you're on your own, but you don't have to do this alone. Pair yourself and find, that person who's going to help you with that process. And that's not just when you're, in high school. And that's not just when you're a senior in college. You can do that at any point. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. Everything from an informational interview to shadowing, to a mentoring relationship, to, going and just working in the field. I mean, even those things will tell you, yes, I'm true to this. This is, who I am and what I want to be, or no, I now know that I don't want to do that, but I want to dovetail in this particular direction. So that's one kind of school of thought with that. The other thing, and I can't take credit for this, but one of the things that I think I would say to students as well, because I've heard other people say it, is take some practical application classes. Take a speech writing class. Take a graphic design class. Take a computer class. Take a business class, an accounting class. Those things typically have, jobs or types of jobs applied to them. The person who just I'll put my logo back up again. Hold on just a second. The person who, believe it or not, person who did this logo for me, I'm not sure if you can see it or what part of you can see. She was at my daughter's school, she was a college senior. And I said, listen, I need some help. And I asked my daughter if she knew anybody that could do it, because I was trying to do it, as frugal as I possibly can, but also give someone the opportunity. She did it. I mean, it took her a couple of days. We went through a couple of iterations, and this adjusted and that adjusted. All my logo itself, it's on my letterhead. It's everywhere. And I paid her to do it. And she did a great job. And the next thing that I'm looking to do is probably to do some other things with it as well. But all that said, it was because of the practical, pragmatic, on the ground, day-to-day use, that if you can get good at it, I mean, that could be your hustle. And then basically what you do from there is you just fortify all the other things that you may need to do with it. You should be an excellent writer. That's always good. So, taking English 101 and 102 is great, but maybe you take a business writing class. If you're going to be running you want to get your own business or your own hustle, then, learn some things about, how to do that, what a business plan looks like, formulate that business plan, as a part of your class. Heck, your teacher's going to grade it. They're a business mind themselves. You've got the template already laid out, and all you got to do from there is just basically, find the capital, or just, piecemeal it till you get to where you want to go. That more than anything else are things types of things that I try and tell students and suggest to students that they do, so that they're guaranteed on the other end of that to, know and have, what they need. The other thing too, and last thing I'll say is look at the projections for your particular field that you're going into. Now, right now, we live just outside Washington, D.C., and there are data centers everywhere, are surrounding me, that's obviously an industry that has just gotten off the ground within the last 3 to 5 years, and is clearly going to be around for the next 15 or 20. That's the kind of job you should be looking for, or types of things that you can do between your major and your minor, and even the kind of classes that you take. That can be the thing that you end up doing for the rest of your life, because it is or becomes your passion project. And so I think if you think of it not necessarily in the way of a major, which is not a bad thing, think of it as a major, but really think of it as what your passion project is, and looking to kind of build the structure around it so that you're able to do that. I think that's all it takes.
Well, I know that, here's the thing. Students today, they have challenges that you and I didn't have when we were going to school. But I also know they have resources at their fingertips that you and I didn't have, namely someone like you, for instance. And I see like the value in what you offer, because I've seen so many people go through college. My best friend, for instance, he wanted to become a what was his degree in? Degree was in uh, it's drawn. I'm drawing a blank right now. I know what it is. I just can't think of the word.
That's fine.
He wanted to go into news, like he wanted to become
Telecommunications, like
more like
in work.
a reporter type thing. But there's a
Yeah, got it.
anyway. I don't know why it's one of those things. It's getting older. No, I was always this way. So anyway, I'll go back to it. Anyway, what he found was is that after he got his degree and started seeking out jobs, he realized that news isn't what it used to be. It wasn't about stating the facts or giving you the facts. It had become this entity that was giving opinions more than facts, and so it was always slanted depending on what news agency you were with. And so journalism, there you go, that's what it was, journalism.
Okay.
And so after receiving his journalism degree, he never used it because he became disenchanted with what he found journalism to be now after he got his degree. Now, I would have said, hey, here's this whole new internet thing. You can go out and become a journalist on your own and start your own thing, like many people have done, like Kyle Kalinske, David Dole. I mean, there's so many people out there who've done that, but he's not an entrepreneur. So if he had had someone like you, he would one go, okay, I'm not an entrepreneur, so am I willing to accept journalism the way it is today? And if I'm not, then maybe I need to think of a different direction. And if he had someone like you, he would have thought about that before spending the money he had on getting a journalism degree that he never used.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I think we all need a little coaching in one respect or another, and some may need it more than others. If you're doing great, in school, academically, doesn't necessarily always translate to success on the other end of that, because I think there's still the work and work ethic that you kind of have in order to get there. I know of or you hear stories about read them in newspapers or in magazines about individuals who have a PhD, but are really more of a professional student than they are actually a practitioner in their field or world. And so I get that. I think that happens for some. It doesn't happen for all, but it happens for some. The majority of people, I think, do find their way and find their passion and are able to capitalize on it. And sometimes that means you can be an entrepreneur. I'll be the first to tell you, I was a practitioner more than I've been an entrepreneur. I've only been an entrepreneur in the last 2.5, 3 years. And even then, I'm still learning along the way about things that I didn't know or that I should be doing as well. So by no stretch of the imagination do I want to give you or your listening audience the idea or the impression that Thriving Like Coaching and Reginald Ryder has it all together. Well, I'm still kind of learning as we go as well. And I think that's part of the beauty of this type of work, is that for the students that I've worked with and students that I continue to work with, I'm learning so much about them, but learning so much about myself and learning so much about the process of getting them to from where they are to where they need to be, that it's been, an amazing short ride. I'm able to do, and I do the coaching that I do with students, via Zoom, just like we're doing this podcast right now. And I have students that I work with that right now that are in North Carolina, that are in Pennsylvania, in California, in Maryland, and pretty much anywhere. So we connect like this, and we sit and just have a conversation, about what things look like or how things are going, for the day or for the week. Everything from state schools, private schools, HBCUs. I've got it covered in the context of the work and the coaching that I'm doing. I even coach several high school students as well. But the point with all this is that I'm probably not saying much different than what their parents are saying. At least I don't think I am. If I am, I'd be shocked. But I think all I'm doing in some respects is reinforcing and supporting what they're saying. But I'm also doing it from a practitioner's point of view and saying, I'm not going to give it to you like your parents would give it to you, sometimes with a little bit more fluff and a little more buffer. Sometimes maybe very, very direct. Fortunately, the students that I'm working with so far are pretty eager, and even if they don't start eager, get on board, I think, with what I'm offering and what I'm offering to them. And a lot of it's in their hands. So we'll talk about the goals that they have, but a task, or for every goal you have, there's a task that's attached to it. Maybe there's 2 or 3 things within that goal, within that task that are going to help you get to that goal. So, you say you're a bad time manager. Okay. That means you got to get organized. You got to manage your times. You got to be structured. You got to know what and when and how to, kind of place priority appropriately in order to make sure that things get done. Okay. So if you can do that or work through that with me, or you can allow me to help you work through that with you, where will you be? You'll start to get, create the habit. And the bad habit that you had in procrastinating and not getting things done, or not being a little disorganized, with a little help, is the same thing, the same mantra. Because a bad habit is what? Something that's repeated and doesn't break its cycle. The same is true for a good habit, in that if you do it enough, you get the right results and it feels right. So I tell students all the time that I want you to think about what we're going to do in the triple C's: competence, confidence, and competition. Once you be competent, I want you to know what you need to know in order to show your professor or teacher, high school or otherwise, or college, and even your employer, what you're capable of. But you have to have the inventory. The inventory has to be there. But once you're able to use it and maximize it to the best of your ability, who wouldn't have any more, a little more confidence and a lot more swag and a lot more kind of, stability in knowing that what you're able to do. But the final thing is that, it gives you the ability to be competitive. And you're not just competing in the way of your grades, you're competing against yourself. You're not competing against the general public initially. You're competing against yourself. What can I do that I think that in my uncomfortableness can I make comfortable? How do I make that happen? But also understand that in doing so, what you really do is you're now in a position to say, this is what I've done. And this is an inventory of what I've done, called a resume. So when somebody's looking at it, you can tell them the how and the why and what happened on the other end of it. You make yourself even that much more indispensable and so much more valuable and so much more sought after. And, for all the jobs that are out there, all you need is one to say yes. Right. You just go to work from there, and you keep applying those same habits that you learned in college or that got you to this point. And that's what it's all about.
And I think this is something that's important to let the listeners and the viewers know, is that your business is set up to help everyone from middle school to young professionals, because of what you just cited. Those are all things that once you get out of college, you still have to have, certain abilities, to express what you can do, and when show people, if you can do all these things, but you don't tell people about it, they're not going to be able to read your mind. So to have someone like you to say, okay, these are the things that you need to present to, possible employers, so that they take a look at you and want to hire you instead of someone else. I think that's, invaluable as far as, the help that you can give them. So, yeah.
I tell students all the time, and I'll be first to tell you, Kurt, I'm an acronym city when it comes to just kind of keeping things in perspective and managing things, but I'll give you another one. So I said triple C before with regard to, confidence, competition, and competence, and competition. Right. I'll give you one more, and it's PAIR. It's PAIR. It's real simple. It's just process and apply information for results. That's the world. When you're doing it in high school, they're telling you to take the information that you've learned, or college, process it in whatever shape, form, or fashion that you need to. So that when I ask you on a test, or I ask you in a presentation, or I ask you on a quiz, or I ask you in a thesis, dissertation, or research paper, what you know, and being able to answer these questions and doing so, to the extent you need to. But what is our day-to-day job? Our day-to-day job is to do the very same thing. Oh, I've noticed a problem. It manifests itself in this particular way. This is what the disconnect is. Let me fill this void with this bit of training or knowledge or information so that we can now do the thing that we want to do. And that needs to be done. And wow, look at this. Now we're making 10% more. We have 10% more retention. We have 20% more in sales. We have 30% more in customer satisfaction. People will pay you for that.
Definitely. Absolutely. I like the fact that, because I've said for years and years, I always challenge the phrase that, knowledge is power. And I said, knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. Because you have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't use it, it doesn't do anything. So it's like, it's just useless, it's just useless knowledge at that point. So
Exactly.
apply it. So I like that you in your pair that you apply these things. You apply this information. You don't just have it, you use it.
Yep. I know it's the worst feeling in the world. I remember this as being a kid, that there were times when, and I think we've all done this, you get asked the question in school and somebody raises their hand and three people try and answer and they don't. And you know the answer and don't answer, right? Then someone who you don't even think, puts their hand up and says, so-and-so, and they're like, exactly, that's right. And they get all the accolades and they get all the, the attention. And I'm like, man, hey, I knew that. I should have spoke up.
Right.
So, it just makes sense to be as committed to that as you are to kind of everything else that's going on.
So one of the things I want to ask you, because you made a good point, you said you'd be surprised if you're saying anything much different than what the parents are telling the students. As we know, that we very seldom listen to those who are closest to us. Someone close to us can tell us something over and over and over again, and then some stranger will tell us and we'll go, that's brilliant. And your friends go, I've been telling you this for a year, but we don't hear it. And so that's probably very much, like the kids don't hear what their parents saying, but you come along and you say exactly what the parents say, and all of a sudden, oh, now it registers. So what can parents do to help prepare them so that when they have you come in, it makes your job easier? Like what things could they do? What steps could they take to make it an easier process?
So, it's interesting because a lot of my point of entry with regard to coaching students is really comes from the parents that see my information and, inquire, a little further, through the website or otherwise. But part of what I do in that initial conversation I have with the parent is, sometimes I do it via Zoom, but a lot of times I do it over the phone if that be the case. But either way, I typically, find out a little bit more about what's going on with the student, what they're not doing or what they want to do, and get a better sense from them about that. And then what it really does is kind of gives me the idea of how to cater what my service is to their needs. So if they're disorganized, and we talked about, okay, listen, we'll deal with and focus on time management and organization. If they are, procrastinated, we'll do the same type of things. And on the website itself, it talks about, because I actually have a specific page kind of geared to the parents that talks about what things get kind of reinforced in the context of the coaching itself. And so it's everything from accountability to, more autonomy, advocacy, and the whole nine. So there's a lot of things that are there. But again, those things are not things that you wouldn't instill or haven't instilled or attempted to instill, I would say, minimally in your son or daughter. So I give the parents that information. And so what I'll tell the students, I'll tell the parent is that, listen, I want you to look at the website. I want you to glean it and ask all the questions that you need to. But I also want you to share this website with your son or daughter. I want them to look at it and know for themselves what it is that they're about to embark upon. And in doing so, I bring all three together, the parents, myself, and the student, for a minimum kind of a 15-minute consultation that I just do for free. Just here, I just want you to show you, I want to see what you need. I want to tell you what I can do, what I'm capable of, and then see if it matches. And if it matches, we obviously move forward with that. But I talk about my own experience and not being, the sharpest pencil in the box, and what it took for me to get from point A to point B. And 9 times out of 10, that resonates more with people in the way of a story and a real life kind of depiction of it. And then being able to say to them, these are the things that I can help you do. These are the things that I can, if you want to be a X, or you want to get to X, then this is what you got to do. It's X plus Y now. And this coaching really does help that. There's not been a student, with the exception of one student, I would say, that I've worked with thus far. And that's just because there are some other issues kind of outside of the sphere of that. Every student I've worked with, I've been able to help in some shape, form, or capacity in improving their grades, but really not even just the grades, because grades, are kind of relative, but improving their grades, but really making them more invested, as we talked about at the very beginning of the telecast,
right,
more invested in the process and able to advocate for themselves in all the ways that they needed to. So those are the kinds of things that I do in working with the parents and then with the student. And then from there, I do an initial assessment with the student that's separate from the parent, because from there it's now one-on-one. It's just the two of us working together. And I don't ask anything that's off kilter in any way, but just trying to learn more about the student so I can gain a better sense of the how and the what of how to do. And then our meetings that we have thereafter are basically just a check-in to make sure that they're, if they said they wanted to be X, and they wanted to do X in order to make sure that happened, what do those things look like? Are you doing them? To what extent are you doing them? Are you getting the results you're looking for? Do we need to go back to the drawing board? If you've kind of solved that problem or accomplished that goal, now let's just make sure that it's habit and habit forming, and it gets you the results that you're looking for. And just continue on from there. I've got several repeat clients who have started with me from high school and now in college, or who started with me in college and are still kind of working through. So it has the ability to do that. And so long and short, I can be there every step of the way.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth. So let me just ask you this, because it seems to me like, so you help kids find their passion, which in alone, because I think sometimes that can be one of the most challenging things for people to do. I mean, I know people our age who still don't know what their passion is. So I go,
right.
I would think that it would be a challenge to find these kids and find what drives them or what passions, or maybe it's easier when you're a kid. Maybe you have that ability to be more passionate about things. And as you become an adult, you become less and less passionate about things. So maybe it's easier as a child, but I guess what I want to ask is, what happens if you have a kid come to you and go, I want to pursue a liberal arts degree, and you go, okay, that's fine. If that's your passion, but let's put practicality to it. What is it that you're going to do with that liberal arts degree? And so what I'm hearing is that you help them understand that, okay, if this is your passion, this is what you want to do. This is, these are the next steps, or this is the direction that you're going to want to go if you want to make that degree, work for you. Is that correct? Because if that is, okay, so if that's the truth, I'm telling you, parents, if you're out there, you need his service because that would save people. I mean, again, a return on your investment. That's what I think most parents want. They go, I don't mind investing in my kids. I want to invest in my kids' college, but I if they get a liberal arts degree, I want to see it pay off for them some way, and not
Sure.
spent $50,000 on a fancy piece of paper. So
exactly. So I am able to do that. I've been able to do that. And I guess long and short, I kind of, for the several years that I worked in in some of the academic institutions and the roles that I've been in, I've done it and helped students for free. You know, I'm able to do it now, and I'm able to do it, you know, reasonably speaking, at a reasonable price and a reasonable level. It's not, you know, we're not talking about, getting a loan to be able to do this. We're just
Right.
talking about just doing it, but doing it incrementally. I typically see results or try and work with students so that I'm able to work with them at least a semester. I prefer an academic year because I think all this is going to take time, or take some time to kind of put in place. But again, in doing it, have been successful in making that part of the process happen on time and time again.
Well, okay. So here's the thing. You mentioned earlier that you offer a free consultation, 15-minute consultation, where you can sit down and you can talk to the parents, talk to the kid, and make sure this is a good fit for everybody. And so there's nothing to lose. You know, I always go, look, when someone says there's something free, why would you not take them up on it? You know, it just, because there's nothing to lose and everything to gain when you do that. So on your,
Exactly.
so tell everybody where they can reach you, your website, if you use social media, your social media, and I'll make sure there's a link below for everybody. So if you're driving your car and you're listening to this, don't stop, don't try to write it down or anything. It'll be at the bottom. So when you get home, you can just click on the links. Okay. But go ahead and tell people where they can find you.
Sure. So my website is reginaldryder.com. It's ReginaldRyder.com. That's the website for Thriving Life Coaching. I'm on Instagram at RRYDER, the number 4 TLC. And that's actually the email. It's so I try to make it simple and easy for everybody to remember. So the email address is rryder4tlc@gmail.com. If you go to the website, it actually gives you a opportunity to provide a little narrative, if you will, about your particular situation. That will come to you in an email. I'll be notified and then be in contact with you. The book is also on the website as well, Passing the Baton, the Guide and Memoir of College Success. You can buy it there as well. I do work also with either preparatory post-secondary organizations, or even colleges, universities as well, in providing services or insights or speaking engagements and things of that sort also. So there are, I guess, lots of different ways to be able to get this good information to your family, or to your students, or to your organization that you work with. And I'm just happy I'm in a position to be able to offer it.
Excellent. Well, listen, I appreciate you being on the show. I think that the service that you have to offer, I think there's a ton of people out there who could benefit from the service. I know I could have benefited from it when I was younger, had you been around, but you're younger than me, so that wouldn't have been possible. But but so again, it's great that we live in this day and age where you have resources such as yourself to help, to help students like find what it is that they're looking for, and get a return of investment on that investment that that either they or their parents are putting into their college degree. And so you know it, I can't say enough good things about it. But so
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
my pleasure. Well, thank you again for being on the show. And folks, thank you for joining us. Go check out his book and get his book, Passing the Baton, a guide and memoir of college success. And go to his website and check out his business, Thriving Life Coaching. And if you have kids that are in high school or middle school, or going into college, and you think that this that you could use some help, this is the man to look to. So go check it out and see if he can't give you a better return on your investment. So okay.
Exactly.
So thanks again for joining us, and until next time, take care, be safe. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you to wear your mask, but if you want to, do it. Bye.
Take care.